Margaret Thompson was 70 years old when the quiet finally began to scare her. For the first time in her life, silence felt heavier than noise. She lived alone in a small yellow house in rural Vermont, a house her late husband, George, had built with his own hands 50 years ago. Every floorboard creaked with memories. Every corner whispered of love, laughter, and long-gone days. Each morning, she sat by the window in her faded floral chair, the same spot she'd chosen when George passed away 10 years earlier. From there, she could see the maple trees sway, watch children ride their bikes past her fence, and sometimes, just sometimes, catch a glimpse of her own reflection in the glass. The tired face of a woman who had loved deeply and lost quietly. Margaret's days were simple. She woke before sunrise, brewed her coffee, and fed the stray cat that came every morning, a gray one she called Buddy. Then she'd sit by the window, a blanket over her knees, and read old letters George had written from Vietnam. The ink had faded, but his words hadn't. "You are my forever home, Maggie," he had written in 1969. Sometimes, she whispered back to him, as if the wind could carry her words beyond the grave. Her children had grown, moved far away, one to Chicago, another to Seattle. They called when they could, sent photos, and promised to visit soon. But soon became someday, and someday stretched into years. Margaret never complained. She understood that life moves faster for the young and slower for the old. Still, she kept their childhood rooms clean, waiting for laughter to return. One snowy afternoon, she slipped on the porch stairs. The pain wasn't terrible, but the shock was. Lying there, surrounded by white silence, she realized there was no one to call her name. No one who would know if she didn't get up. After a while, she pulled herself to her feet and laughed through her tears. "You're still tougher than you look, Maggie," she whispered. That night, she wrote a letter not to her children, but to herself. "I am still here. I have lived through war, childbirth, loss, and loneliness. I have watched the world change from radios to robots, from letters to video calls. And yet, love feels the same as it did in 1955. Maybe that's what keeps me alive, the hope that someone, someday, will sit in this chair and remember me." Spring came. The maple trees bloomed again. One morning, as she poured her coffee, she heard a car stop in front of the house. Her heart jumped. She hadn't had visitors in months. When she opened the door, a young woman stood there, holding a camera and smiling. "Hi, are you Mrs. Thompson? I'm Lily. I'm doing a project on the oldest houses in our town. The postman said you've lived here forever." Margaret laughed softly. "Feels like it." Lily stepped inside, looking around with wonder. "This place is beautiful. It feels alive." They talked for hours. Margaret told her stories about George, the war, her children, and the summer nights when the house smelled of apple pie and laughter. Lily listened, eyes wide, as if hearing living history. Before leaving, she said, "Can I come back sometime? Maybe help you start a little online journal, to share your stories." That night, for the first time in years, Margaret didn't eat dinner alone. The echo of Lily's laughter still lingered in the kitchen. Weeks passed, and the young woman returned often. They recorded Margaret's stories on camera. "The day I met George. The first Christmas in the yellow house. The war letter." Thousands of people online began to follow her. Comments flooded in. "Reminds me of my grandma. I wish I could hug her. This woman has the soul of an angel." Margaret was shocked. People still listen. She asked one day. Lily smiled. "People don't just listen, they need you. You remind them what love sounds like." Months later, Margaret's children saw the videos. Embarrassed and proud, they called her more often, then came to visit. One Sunday afternoon, the yellow house was full again, laughter, voices, music, and the smell of fresh apple pie. Margaret sat by the window, in her old chair, watching them all, her family, her new young friend, her cat curled at her feet. The sun painted her silver hair in gold. For the first time in years, the quiet didn't scare her anymore. It felt full. As the camera rolled for the final video, Lily asked softly, "What would you like people to remember about you, Mrs. Thompson?" Margaret smiled, eyes shining. "That I loved, even when it hurt. That I waited, even when no one came. And that the chair by the window was never just a chair. It was where I learned that life is still beautiful, even when you're 70 and alone." Final message for listeners. If you have an old person in your life, call them today. Sometimes the smallest hello can heal the biggest silence.